Children don't just vanish in the middle of an amusement park, but in Houston, they did. And the sound that gave them away was coming from beneath the clown stage. 3 metallic knocks, faint, deliberate, echoing from beneath the clown stage. Just enough sound to slice through carnival music and laughter. Parents don't notice, children don't care. But one mother, already living with ghosts, hears the rhythm and feels her stomach drop. In Houston's largest amusement park, where the air smells of cotton candy and the sky flickers with neon wheels, there are places sound shouldn't come from. And yet here, where the ground is supposed to hold only concrete, rides, and buried power lines, something in the dark is knocking back. It is the kind of sound no one can explain, the kind of sound everyone wants to ignore. But one woman cannot ignore it because her daughter has just vanished. And beneath the painted joy of the clown stage, the metal is already telling the truth. Denise Carter had never trusted crowds, nor promises of safety wrapped in bright lights. At 38, she was a paralegal who thought in outlines and evidence, a woman whose personal history had carved sharp edges into her life. Her younger sister had disappeared at 17, a cold case sealed in dust, no suspects, no resolution. That absence became a presence in itself, a constant vibration in Denise's nerves. So, when she brought her 10-year-old daughter Kayla to Houston's sprawling amusement park that summer, joy was a performance. She smiled. She bought tickets. She held her child's hand tightly, but in her head, she was scanning risk. The missing security guard at his post, the overflowing trash cans that no one seemed to clean, the tiny cracks in a perfectly painted facade. Kayla, meanwhile, was nothing but unfiltered wonder. The child lived for this day. She ran toward carousels, screamed on bumper cars, won an oversized bear at ring toss, every ride, every sound, every smell. The roasted peanuts, the hot asphalt, the faint grease from a Ferris wheel axle was magic. Denise tried to allow herself to believe it too, just for a few hours. For one day, she wanted to put down the armor. Her daughter's laughter, pure and bubbling, loosened the knots in her chest. For a fleeting moment, Denise thought maybe here, surrounded by mechanical music and the roar of roller coasters, they could be safe. But her grip on Kayla's hand was still tighter than it needed to be. Her eyes still scanned shadows others ignored. And while thousands of children screamed with joy all around her, a quiet truth beat in the back of her mind. Danger doesn't always wear a mask of menace. Sometimes it dresses in joy. By late afternoon, the park's Grand Plaza was alive with swirl and color. Paths from half a dozen themed sections converged here, and at the center was the most beloved act, the clowns. A troupe in oversized shoes and rainbow wigs tumbled, juggled, and played slapstick routines that sent ripples of laughter through the crowd. Kayla, squeezed up to the front, was spellbound. One clown stood out, the lead, towering and wiry, his wig a bright orange explosion, his face painted in permanent surprise. The program called him Mr. Patches. Denise hovered a few feet behind, finally relaxing enough to glance at a folded park map, planning their route to the exit. She allowed herself to breathe, just for a moment. On stage, the juggling routine reached a peak. Then, slip, a ball tumbled from Mr. Patch's hands, rolling across the stage until it landed near Kayla's shoes. Gasps turned to giggles as the clown stumbled theatrically, tripping over his own feet, pretending he couldn't reach it. Children screamed with laughter. Then Mr. Patches looked directly at Kayla. He winked, tilted his head toward the ball, then toward a small curtained arch at the back of the stage. The gesture was quick, almost imperceptible. To Kayla, it wasn't sinister. It was an invitation. She glanced back. Her mother's eyes were still on the map. Heart racing with excitement, she scooped up the ball and, with a grin meant for the clown alone, slipped behind the curtain. 10 seconds. That's all it took. 10 seconds of distraction, and the world shifted forever. When Denise looked up, Kayla was gone. At first, it was only a flicker of alarm. Her daughter must have ducked behind taller kids. She pushed forward, scanning yellow cotton shirt, brown ponytail, sneakers with pink laces. Nothing. Her calls started soft. Kayla? Honey? But the show was ending, the crowd dispersing into chatter and motion, and Kayla did not answer. Panic bloomed fast. Denise tore through the arcade, the bathrooms, the souvenir stalls. Each empty space felt like a blade. It was as if her daughter had evaporated into thin air. She reached a park security officer, words tumbling out. My daughter. She was here. She followed a clown. Orange wig. Tall. She hasn't come back. The guard's face flattened into procedure. He radioed in a code atom. Missing child. The machine whirred to life. Staff fanned out. Announcements hushed. But to Denise, it was agonizingly slow. She knew this wasn't a case of wandering off. She had seen the gesture, the invitation. Within minutes, the plaza was back to business. As usual, families streamed toward rides. Balloons bobbed. Churros fried in grease. But for one, mother standing in the center, the noise of joy had turned into static. Her daughter was gone, and no one seemed to understand that this wasn't just a lost child. It was a kidnapping hiding in plain sight. The official response came, wrapped in uniforms and protocol. Chief Miller, the park's head of security, was a man whose face looked carved from tired stone. Late 50s, ex-cop, slow voice like a flat line. He listened as Denise, trembling but precise, laid out the facts. The clown, the dropped ball, the wink, the curtained arch. His expression didn't change. Ma'am, our performers follow a strict no-contact policy. They don't invite children backstage. They don't gesture. It's for safety. His tone was calm, patronizing, designed to pacify. Denise snapped back. I know what I saw. But Miller's next card was stronger. The cameras. We'll check footage. Minutes later, his radio buzzed with a conveniently perfect problem. Main stage cameras down. Been glitching all afternoon. Power surge. The narrative was building. A hysterical mother. An unreliable witness. An uncooperative fact pattern. Detective Riley from Houston PD arrived soon after. He was mid-40s, with the weary air of a man drowning in too many cases. Missing child at an amusement park? He'd seen it before. 9 times out of 10, it was a runaway hiding in an arcade, or a custody issue with a parent. He read the scene quickly. Distraught mother, calm head of security, broken camera, no corroborating witness. To Riley, it was simple triage. The homicide cases, waiting back at his desk, carried more weight than a probable runaway. Any custody disputes? He asked flatly. I'm a single mother, Denise shot back. Her father hasn't been in the picture for years. But Riley had already slotted her into a category. Emotional, unreliable, fueled by trauma. He scribbled notes, filed her story of clowns and gestures under improbable detail, and prepared the paperwork that would quietly downgrade Kayla Carter's disappearance into a low-priority case. For Denise, The wall was clear now. She wasn't just fighting to find her daughter, she was fighting the narrative, the liability machine, the system itself. Meanwhile, in the very same security office, the predator played his part. Arthur Wynne, known to thousands of children as Mr. Patches, still wore half his costume. The grease paint face, frozen in a perpetual mask of surprise, looked almost grotesque under fluorescent lights. He sat calmly, answering questions with soft, careful words. Yes, I remember a girl in a yellow shirt. Sweet kid. But no, Chief, you know the policy. We don't single out children. We never invite them backstage. The mother must be confused. I can't imagine what she's going through. Each sentence was a scalpel, cutting Denise's credibility. He made himself sound empathetic, professional, safe. He knew exactly what the system wanted to hear, and he gave it to them. By the time he left the office, Miller and Riley saw him not as a suspect, but as a cooperative witness. He offered to help, handed over his contact information, and wished for the girl's safe return. Then, in the employee locker room, he scrubbed away the last streaks of orange and white paint. The beloved clown dissolved in cold cream, leaving only Arthur Wynne, a man whose true mask was the ordinariness of his face. The wolf had not just hidden in sheep's clothing. He had convinced the shepherd he was one of them. The park closed. Music silenced. Neon blinked out one by one. Denise stood at the gate while Chief Miller delivered the final dismissal. Ma'am, we've done all we can tonight. Come back tomorrow. Police will continue the investigation. Her eyes, hollow but blazing, met his. My daughter is in this park. I can feel it. I'm not leaving without her. But rules were rules. 2 guards walked her out. She didn't drive home. She parked in the far corner of the empty lot, engine off, windows cracked against the humid Texas night. And she waited. The silence was worse than noise. The Ferris wheel loomed like a skeleton, one red light blinking at its peak like an ominous eye. From time to time, the wind carried the faint echo of carousel music, warped into something ghostly and cruel. Denise replayed everything: the clown, the gesture, the missing footage, the dismissive detective. Doubt gnawed at her. Was grief from her sister's disappearance making her see patterns? Was she wrong? But then she remembered Kayla's trusting smile, the way her daughter looked back one last time before stepping through that curtain. And she knew her daughter hadn't wandered. She'd been taken. At dawn, maintenance vans trickled into the lot. Denise, unremarkable sedan blending in, slipped back inside behind them. The park, in morning light, was eerie. Silent rides, empty pathways, cartoon colors faded in shadow. She crouched near the clown stage, scanning for anything, when a voice startled her. You're not supposed to be here. An old man in a gray uniform stood with a toolbox. His name tag read, Carl. Wrinkles lined his face like worn asphalt. His eyes, however, carried something Denise hadn't seen all night: recognition. My daughter disappeared here yesterday, she whispered. No one's looking. Carl studied her, then nodded slightly. He had worked at the park for over 30 years. He had heard things: strange banging beneath the arcade at night, sounds dismissed as pipes or rats. He had seen crates that never moved, doors that weren't on maps. He had filed reports once. No one listened. The clowns, Denise pressed. One of them took her. Carl's jaw tightened. For decades, he had lived with suspicions buried under apathy. But this woman's conviction, the raw truth in her voice, stripped away the habit of silence. Finally, he made a choice. Follow me, he said. Carl Simmons, tired old maintenance worker, became her first ally, and with him came something she hadn't felt in hours: hope. Carl waited until the shift changed, when the early crews had gone and before the park officially opened. Then he motioned Denise into the empty Grand Plaza. The space felt hollow in daylight, stripped of its noise. The clown stage stood silent, curtains swaying faintly in the morning breeze. Carl pointed toward a stack of brightly colored crates piled near the arcade wall. Prize crates, he muttered. Funny thing is, they never moved them. Not for cleaning, not for storage. Always here. Together, they dragged the boxes aside, sweat mixing with dust and the faint smell of stale popcorn. Beneath the final crate lay something out of place, a steel outline embedded in the concrete, a hatch, industrial, heavy, designed to disappear in plain sight. Denise dropped to her knees, pressing her hand to the cold metal. From beneath came a vibration, faint but real. Her chest tightened. The hatch was secured with a massive padlock, far heavier than any maintenance lock Carl had keys for. He pulled a crowbar from his belt. Stand back. The groan of straining steel echoed across the plaza as he wedged the bar into the seam. With a grunt, the lock snapped. The hatch creaked open, exhaling a wave of stale, musty air that smelled of rust, damp earth, and something sickly sweet. A narrow ladder disappeared into darkness. Denise didn't hesitate. She swung her legs over and began to climb down. The tunnel below was narrow, claustrophobic, lined with pipes and conduits. Carl's flashlight cut through dust so thick it looked like fog. Water dripped steadily from overhead, each plink echoing like a clock tick. Denise's heart pounded, but then the beam caught something small and sharp against the gray floor, a bright plastic hair clip. She froze. She knew it instantly. Kayla's. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. Proof. Relief and horror struck in equal measure. Kayla had been here. They pressed deeper. The tunnel opened wider, and the flashlight revealed scratches carved into the crumbling concrete walls. Not graffiti, names, dozens of them. Small, uneven letters etched by desperate hands. Beside each name, tally marks, counting days. Denise touched one with her fingers. The grooves were shallow but real. Her throat closed. How many children had been here before? How many never made it out? Carl's jaw tightened. He'd suspected corruption, maybe crime, but this was something darker. A system. Then, a sound. Not banging this time, but soft, muffled crying. Faint, yet unmistakable. They followed it, footsteps echoing louder with every turn. The tunnel ended in a heavy steel door reinforced with bolts and a barred window at eye level. The crying was clearer now. Small voices, whimpers, shifting bodies. Denise stretched on her toes, peering through the grate. A dim bulb swung above a cramped room. On the floor, half a dozen children huddled on filthy mattresses, and among them, Kayla. Her daughter's face was pale, but alive. Denise nearly collapsed with relief. But in the corner sat a man, not in costume, just plain clothes, posture casual, gaze fixed on the children, like a guard watching property. Denise pressed a finger to her lips, tears spilling silently. Kayla's eyes widened, then narrowed in quick understanding. She nodded faintly, lips trembling, and then, in a whisper, fragile but clear, she said the words that shattered the lie. The clowns brought us here. Denise staggered back. Every insult, every dismissal, every broken camera obliterated by 5 words from the mouth of her child. She fumbled for her phone. Not the park, not the security office, not Riley. She dialed 911. Her whisper cut through disbelief. My name is Denise Carter. My daughter disappeared yesterday at the amusement park. I found her. She's alive. She's here with other children. You have to send help. Now. The operator at first thought prank, but there was something in Denise's voice, clarity sharpened by terror, that could not be faked. And for the first time in 24 hours, the system began to move. The call lit a fuse. Within the hour, the Houston Police Department scrambled. The county sheriff's office mobilized. Even the FBI was alerted. Flashing blue and red filled the pre-dawn darkness outside the park. Detective Riley returned, face ashen, realization dawning that the hysterical mother had just uncovered something far beyond a custody dispute. Guided by Carl Simmons, a SWAT team descended into the tunnels. Boots clanged on ladders, rifles braced, flashlights slicing through shadows. The corridors that had once hidden secrets now became highways for justice. At the steel door, single breach charge split the silence. The lock screamed, the door burst open, and agents stormed inside. The children were pulled to safety, one by one, pale faces blinking against the harsh light. Arthur Wynne, no wig, no paint, no smile, sat stunned in the corner. The man who had once juggled before roaring crowds now squinted like a rat in a trap. His arrest was quiet, anticlimactic, but final. The beloved clown of the plaza was unmasked as a predator hiding behind grease paint. But the tunnels did not end there. Teams fanned out, tracing passageways that spider-webbed into storm drains and abandoned warehouses. What they uncovered chilled every officer on the scene. A network designed for efficiency, feeding children through the city's underbelly. Raids across Houston in the next 24 hours revealed more rooms, more names carved into concrete, more victims waiting in the dark. Dozens of children rescued, dozens more who had nearly vanished forever. The amusement park, the place meant for joy, was exposed as camouflage for a machine of cruelty. In the chaos, Denise found Kayla. Mother and daughter collapsed into each other's arms, sobbing, trembling, refusing to let go. For 24 hours they had been separated by disbelief, by bureaucracy, by a painted mask. Now they were whole again. Reporters would later swarm the story. Officials would stand at podiums, promising reform, explaining failures. But for Denise, none of that mattered. All she cared about was the heartbeat pressed against her chest, the small hands clinging to her neck. She had been called paranoid. She had been told to go home, but she hadn't. She refused to believe the tidy story. And because of that, dozens of children were saved. The park reopened weeks later, scrubbed clean, painted brighter. But no coat of paint could erase the memory of what hid beneath. For many, joy would never sound the same again. Sometimes, the monsters don't come in shadows. Sometimes they dance under spotlights, painted in laughter, juggling in front of parents who never think to look twice. And sometimes, the only shield a child has is a parent who refuses to stop listening. If this story kept you holding your breath, don't let it vanish into the noise. Like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Silent Traces so the voices of the missing are never forgotten.